Hello. Did you know that there are two types of people in this world? Those who love Breaking Bad and those who haven't seen it yet. Today I want to take a look at what went on behind the scenes to make this show such a creative masterpiece. From start to finish, the show is a masterpiece. It uses imagery and foreshadowing to drive the plot and characters forward, ending in a volcanic climax that ties the entire plot together in a neat little bow. How was the show able to do that? Planning. Every step of the plot was meticulously planned, from the foreshadowing of the ricin cigarette all the way to the foreshadowing of Gus's death back in season 2. Who is behind the tragedy? Walt is. 3 recent Hollywood examples show the importance of planning your story. First, the recent Star Wars trilogy, with Disney making it up as they went, leaving tonally inconsistent films and angry fans. The second example is whatever Warner Brothers is trying to do with DC. Meanwhile, Kevin Feige had a clear vision for what the MCU was and executed it, leaving his fans happy and raking in more dough with each new film. As you can see, Breaking Bad is such a masterpiece because Vince Gilligan and the rest of the creative team meticulously planned out and executed their vision for their own creative work. It was careful planning that made Breaking Bad such a masterpiece. Except it wasn't. I lied. Vince Gilligan actually didn't have much of a plan for the series beyond, I want to take Mr. Chips and turn him into Scarface.
And the pitch always was, we're going to take Mr. Chips and we're going to turn him into Scarface.
As he fondly puts it, take Mr. Chips and turn him into Scarface.
In fact, the series was so underplanned that Jesse Pinkman's character was intended to be killed off in the first season. So that begs the question, what is the secret ingredient to Breaking Bad's success? The answer is conflict. In Bryan Cranston's 2016 book, A Life in Parts, Cranston describes many of the intricacies behind the scenes while filming Breaking Bad. While he gives Vince and the writers much applause for the great start and foundation of the series, he describes how he and many of the other actors fought with the producers of the show to change scenes. For example, the death of Jane, as watched terrifically by Walt, was originally written drastically different. Instead of Walt letting Jane die, the scene was originally supposed to play out as Walt pushing Jane over to choke on her vomit, actively killing her himself. Cranston writes,
I wasn't the only one shocked. The studio and the network viewed the scene as a critical turning point in the devolution of Walter White. They expressed their concerns to Vince, and he listened and came to agree. He devised a slightly less damning way for Walt to be involved in Jane's death.
I agree with the change here. If Walt had stepped over the line and killed his partner's lover, the acts of evil committed in later episodes would have had less weight. Keep in mind that Walt's murders up until this point could be chalked up to it's him or me. Cranston goes on to write of many more instances of this kind of conflict, namely, this scene where Walt goes to pick up his daughter, Holly. Cranston describes that this scene was something he had to fight for. The writers and producers did not want Walt holding up a baby during the scene, but Cranston argued that his character Walt would instinctively go to pick up and comfort his child. Thus, a compromise scene was created, where Walt would go to Holly, as his character would, but he would be stopped from doing so. All of this is not to say that Cranston won all of his battles on the set of Breaking Bad. While filming the scene of Mike's death, Cranston wanted to do the scene different. However, Cranston compromised his idea for the one that aired because his idea would have taken time from the already tired crew, thus removing the sunset scenery that complements Mike's final words. Cranston compromised his vision of character for a happier crew and more dramatic imagery. I think this is clear evidence for conflict being the source of innovation for the show. After all, war has historically led to spikes in technological innovation, not just in weaponry either, as the first computer was created by Alan Turing out of a need to decipher the German Enigma code during World War II. If Vince Gilligan hadn't let Aaron Paul continue to play Jesse Pinkman, the show would have honestly been bad. I mean, compared to Walter White, Jesse Pinkman is truly a complete contrast. Walter is smart and Jesse is dumb.
Liar.
But while Walt will let a woman die, Jesse will let a bug live. Jesse's yin to Walter's yang creates a hole that the show wouldn't work without. The other main antagonists for Walt are Gus, Hank, and Jack, all of which represent the success Walt lusts after throughout the series. Walt's goal is to break bad and beat these other characters. And without Jesse, this could have easily turned into a villain of the week structure. Gus, Hank, and Jack all represent a goal to Walt. But Jesse exists as someone who actively grows to reject that world. Someone whose goal is to escape the glorification of the criminal underworld. Breaking Bad's ending is so poetic because Walt dies happily in the place Jesse was miserably forced to cook. Walt goes in, Jesse comes out. It's a story of push and pull, and it's the same type of push and pull that happened behind the scenes. The willingness the actors had not only to fight for their vision, but to let their own vision be compromised is the secret ingredient to the show's success. Because while all of these characters on screen are fighting for their own goals, it is made ever more believable that the cast and crew are fighting behind the scenes for those same characters. As Cranston puts it with regards to acting,
An invested actor asks questions that may punch holes in the story or highlight contradictions in a character that writers may not have considered. Asking those questions might mean we have to rethink a beat in the script or redo the blocking. It might mean more work. And that might upset people momentarily. But in the end, I'd rather do more work and get it right and give the finished product a richness and resonance that will last.